we're going to start our panel discussion with two people that are known and loved by all of us here at California Map Society and Calafia. And so when Ron, Tom, and I were actually originally talking about this conference, we thought it might be great to learn more about the world of buying and selling maps. And very fortunately for us, we were able to bring together for you today two experts to offer an introduction to the world of collecting and to hear their thoughts on current trends in the marketplace as well. First, we have auctioneer. Let me just pin them right now on screen with us. First, we have Bruce MacMakin, and we have Carol Spack. Hold on, just add the pin. And I'll do a quick introduction, and then we'll have Bruce speak for a little bit, Carol speak for a little bit, and then we'll open it up for conversation. But as Senior Vice President and co-founder of PBA Galleries, Bruce MacMakin has had a lifelong interest in antique books and maps, even living in Afghanistan as a child. He began his career working at the California Book Auction Galleries before founding PBA Galleries in 1992. Mr. MacMakin's extensive time overseas has contributed to his interest in works on travel, exploration, and early maps, including Americana and general history. Our second panelist is map dealer Carol J. Spack. Carol was educated at Harvard with a law degree from Northeastern School of Law and a master's in city planning from MIT's Department of Urban Studies. As a successful lawyer, she actually closed her practice in 2012 and founded Original Antique Maps after her own first experience purchasing several hand-colored 1871 maps of Worcester County from a local flea market in Massachusetts. Carol beautifully describes maps as works of art that have an ongoing discourse with the mapmaker's imagination about the past, present, and future. And for this panel, we'll give Bruce and Carol time to speak and then open the discussion up to all. So please join me in welcoming both Bruce and Carol for agreeing to share their insights about the process of researching, purchasing, and selling maps.
So am I up now?
I think we'll go with you first, Bruce.
Okay.
And so I'm going to pull up my screen share to have your beautiful map selection showing to the group.
Okay, well, while you're doing that, so now there's a great scholarly presentations. That's not the first map, I don't think, but
oh, I'm sorry, that was the order it was set, sorry.
That's the last one, I think, or one of the last ones.
Okay, so you know what, Bruce? These are going to be out of order. My apologies. I thought I had them in the correct order, and obviously I do not.
Okay, well, we'll just wing it, but basically, and thanks to very scholarly presentations, and now we're going to basically leave scholarship, and this is commerce and profit making, et cetera, in the world of purchasing and sometimes selling rare maps. So if you're intrigued by maps and you need to acquire them, there are several different ways to do so. The easiest way is to become a customer of a rare map dealer, and they will sell you maps. They'll show you maps. They have walk-in stores, some of them, not as many as used to. Most have websites with pictures and descriptions of the offerings. They give you unconditional guarantees on purchases in most cases, and they will coach you on the merits of the maps that you are going to be purchasing. That's a very good way to get introduced to it. But another option, if you want a perhaps wider selection and maybe more a bargain price or less of a price in some cases, you can purchase them at auction. Basically, there are two kinds of auctions. There's the eBay auctions and the eBay style auctions, where individuals and dealers put their wares up there, describe them and picture them, and it's a very much a a wide open market. But and sometimes even though there are bargains, you can't always be sure who you're dealing with, or what the exact how the description is, and the appraisals of the significance of the map from eBay sellers can be bombastic. So the other option is to go through an established auction house. Reputable auction houses that regularly sell maps may offer both the reliability of a retail dealer and the possibility of a bargain purchases that might be found on eBay. Descriptions are generally made by knowledgeable catalogers and less detailed perhaps than retail dealers. And prices are set by the competitive bidding, usually lower than the retail prices. So still waiting for a map. Well, we'll get back to that map later on.
Which map do you want? Which map do you want?
The first one was the Typus Orbis Terrarum. Go, that's the last map. That's it. That's just, and that I don't have anything to say about that map, but that was just to have a map up there while I'm talking about selling maps. But buying a map at auction can be an adventuresome, fun, money saving, and perhaps a little risky. Auction fever has been known to occur as the competitive juices flow. On occasion, especially for maps that are rare and significant, prices can greatly exceed expectations. Can we find the map of the Spanish chart? It's not quite there. Our retail prices, their records can be set, and retail prices follow those records. That's not the Spanish chart, but that's I had sent them to you in order, but my apologies.
Courtney, you might want to do the slide sorter that you had up before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because also the titles that I don't know the names of all these maps. So many apologies. I thought I had it in the right order. I'm so sorry, Bruce. You're doing great.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Well,
Your
anyway,
patience with
this
me.
gives me a chance to catch my breath.
Yeah.
I do want to say a word about the Spanish chart that I'm sure is somewhere.
If you put them all up, Courtney, maybe he can just pick one.
Right. Oh, I'm trying to.
Oh, you're trying to do that?
Yeah, sorry. Trying to get this screen share. Hold on. Here we go. Go. How's that?
Very good.
Thank you, guys.
Yes. So can I just click on the one, or how do
Tell
I?
me which one you want.
This one here.
Just tell me what row and what number.
Second row, number 3.
Got
That
it.
one. Yes. Yes. This is a rare Spanish chart of the coast of California. And this is so this is a demonstration of what I had said about auction fever. This Spanish chart from 1771 is the first map to show San Francisco Bay. It was by Costanza, his map. It was a folding map. We had it estimated at $20,000 to $30,000, and it ended up selling for $131,000 at the sale of the Warren Hickrock collection of rare cartography. Some of you may remember Warren fondly, as I do. And you say, well, why did you estimate it so low? Well, the only record we could find for sales of the map was from 1979 or so at the Warren John Howell Books. They had it priced at $12,000. We figured, well, that was a retail price from a very high retail dealer, but obviously it's a very rare map, and it was bid up to its proper level. Among the most prominent about individual auction houses, among the most prominent and one of the few auction houses specializing in maps is Old World Auctions, with online timed auctions only, about every other month. At PBA Galleries, as with other auction houses that offer maps as well as rare books, manuscripts, and prints and the like, we usually place our maps in a section in auctions with related material like Americana, exploration, or topography. So usually maps are the final section of those sales. We have those kinds of sales about every 6 to 8 weeks. So you can always buy a map if you want, or bid on a map every so often. It is easy and free to register at auction houses, and they will send you email notifications of the auctions coming up. And so with PBA galleries, I can only explain the process that we have, but it's usually the same as for most people. You can send in, you look at the maps, and you can send in absentee bids, or register to, you can bid by bid during the auction over the internet and what you can't do anymore is bid in person at the auction, because we found that nobody was coming to our auctions, and even before the pandemic, and once the pandemic struck, we decided to we sort of had to eliminate in-person possibility of in-person viewing and in-person participation. So when I do the auction, when I'm the auctioneer, I'm auctioning from my seat right here, and it's all connected over the internet. But let's say if you place an absentee bid at PBA galleries, we basically don't start you at your top. We bid for you up to that point based on what other absentee bids are coming in. And during the day of the auction, you can also be on the phone during the auction, as well as participating over the internet. Let's see. The final price, of course, becomes one increment higher than the next highest bid. Some lots have a reserve on them, which they open. And after the pre-sale bidding, the day of the auction, the live bidding takes over. All of, like I say, the auction, all of the auctioneer and all the staff members are scattered geographically throughout the Bay Area, or even along the West Coast. We've even done auctions where people were in, one of our participants was in Greece at the time, participating in the auction. So do we have the map of Maris Pacifici, the Ortelius map of the Pacific? This one over here is second row, number one. Second, yeah. So this is just an example of kind of a maps that great old maps, very important, very beautiful, but not quite as valuable as they used to be. Because if we're getting onto the trends in map and trends in map prices, this from 1603 by Ortelius, sold recently, or we tried to sell it, and it did not meet the reserve of $3,000. A decade ago, it probably would have brought $6,000. It's just the tastes have changed, and what we called old-time atlas maps are just not as valuable as they used to be. And to say that when you participate in map auctions at PBA and other houses, and you keep track of the results, it offers an insight into the evolving prices and the trends in collecting. Like I mentioned, we've seen a definite change at the landmark maps of the 16th through 18th centuries are not as dynamic as they used to be. The 19th and mid 20th century maps that present the development of modern society are gaining more and more interest. Cadastral maps, real estate maps, promotional brochures with bird's eye views, pictorial maps, and other maps that are both show slices of society and the development of into the 20th and now the 21st century. We have the, let's see, where can I, there's a map of, where is it? This one, the second row, last map. Yep. So this is map number 6 of salt marsh and tideland situated in the city and county of San Francisco to be sold at public auction. This is a real estate map from 1871. Printed by G.T. Brown, who was the first African-American lithographer in California. It brought $10,000 with an estimate of 2,000 to 3,000. So it was bid up a great deal. It's both important because basically they were selling the marshlands and the tidelands. So they were selling blocks of land that was still underwater in San Francisco, but they had big plans to fill them in, and they thought might as well get the money up front. But G.T. Brown was a noted lithographer, and as I said, he was remembered as the first African-American lithographer in California. So I think he worked for Kukla and Dressel before that. So that's an interesting map. And, we've sold other maps sort of similar to that not for as much. The map of Chinatown, the second row, second map. No, the other map of Chinatown. Second row. Yes, that's the one. This is the official map of Chinatown in San Francisco, 1885. The color key designates such features as Chinese gambling houses, Chinese prostitution, Chinese opium resorts, etc. This map was issued both in the San Francisco municipal reports and in a book by Farwell called The Chinese at Home and Abroad. I've seen other versions of it as well. We estimated this one at 1,000, 1,500 based on previous sales, and it ended up selling for $15,000. That was in the Charles Fracchia auction we had last April. That was a very high price. I was getting calls from everyone who had that map or a version of it, wanting to know if why was it so much, and was their map worth the same? And I said that was probably might be a one-offer, and that we would probably estimate it maybe at $2,000 to $3,000 or $3,000 to $5,000 in the future, but we didn't want to count on it going for that high a price. You just never know what's going to happen at auctions. So, and the next map, the Mission Terrace. Where is that? This one over first row. That's it. The map of Mission Terrace by John M. Punnett in 1911. This is a real estate map, development of Balboa Park in San Francisco. The lots being sold by Baldwin and Howell, one of the major real estate companies. We estimated it at 500 to 800 because it's fairly recent in the scheme of things, 20th century, and it sold for $4,650, $662.50. So, and again, it's just
that must have been a pleasant surprise, Bruce.
That was, and a lot of the maps of that, in that sale, that was a sale of, I don't know, Charles Fracchia was the founder and president of the San Francisco Historical Society, and he was a great collector of San Francisco history and obviously San Francisco maps. So, and I will give a plug for a sale of the second sale of his collection. We'll have some bird's eye views of San Francisco, if people are interested, coming up this December. I'll try not to be an infomercial though. Next is the San Francisco, that one, yes, the last row. And this is shows the Exposition City, San Francisco, 1912. It was a very large bird's eye view. It was actually issued, it was folded up into an envelope and issued with, I forget the exact name of it was issued with the San Francisco, a supplement to the San Francisco Standard Guide, whatever that was. And it was published in advance of the 1915 Panama Pacific Exposition, but it showed it's important for showing the basically rebuilt city after the earthquake. And it's like 4 feet by 3 feet. So it's a very large detailed bird's eye view. We estimated 1,000 to 1,500. It went for $3,900. So that was good. Next, we finally get to the Chinese Chinatown map up at the top. And this is a very nice ephemeral color pictorial bird's eye cartoon style map of San Francisco's Chinatown. And it was created by Ethel Chun, who was a young art student who was down at in Occidental, I think, in the LA area. And then she came up to Chinatown briefly, or to China, to San Francisco, and the Chinese Chamber of Commerce hired her to create this map. And she would from Hawaii originally, but she created the map, and it sort of folded into a little folder that you could address and send to people out. And it was promoting Chinatown during the 1939 World's Fair. And it sold for $2,000, which is not a great amount, but sort of a very nice amount for a little ephemeral item like that. And of note, Ethel Chung then went back to Hawaii and assisted her family in the development of the Aloha shirt. They were a family of tailors, so she had a past there. Shall I go on? I have more maps.
You're
Bruce,
muted.
that's been a wonderful overview and introduction. Let's make sure, I want to make sure we have time for people for their questions. I'm going to say thank you so much, and we will toss over to Carol for now, and then I'll bring you back on in just 1 second.
Okay.
Carol, hello. Where's my participant? Carol. And so we have Carol Spack, who's going to talk briefly about, for those of the other end, sort of sorry, wonderful to have Carol here.
Thank you. Should I begin?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you.
I have been collecting maps and I have been selling maps, and I would say I still share the perspective of both a buyer and a seller of maps for that reason. And I often, when people come to me and tell me that they're asking for a particular map, which I might not have, I often have a conversation with that person and ask why he or she might be collecting and what the purpose is. And also encourage that person, wait until you find something you really love. So I would say my philosophy as a person who offers maps for sale is definitely encouraging even curators, wait until you find exactly what you're looking for. I confess now to having several rooms full of maps in my house, so I'm not sure as a buyer whether I adhere to that philosophy. It sometimes gets out of control. I want to start by talking about value rather than price. I think that often when I get emails and phone calls, the question is, I have a map, and what is my map worth? And I do have one visual, and that is this dollar bill. And I know that when a person is calling me, they are asking, when they ask, what is my map worth? They're asking monetarily, what is that map worth? And I'm researching something right now which has to do with paper money. I could answer somewhat historically and theoretically that even paper currency value is debated. And earlier I was going to hold up a $10 bill, and now I've held up a $100 bill. So I would encourage people to realize that thinking about value is better than thinking about price, because then you can decide whether the map that a person is offering you for sale or that you stumble on has value for you. So I do start in the hierarchy with value as personal value. Why are you collecting? Where does this fit within what you may already have collected? And what are your longer term thoughts? Is this part of a family collection you're building? Is this educational in some way? Do you have an art collection? So what is the personal value? The second value, which is different than cartographic value, is the art value. What is the decorative value of the map? A person who's an art collector or just loves art might gravitate to a map, and saying, I like it is okay. Liking the map liking the colors, the composition, the imagery. I love symbolism. And if you go to the California Map Society magazine, Calafia, I had the privilege of having 4 articles published in Calafia on the theme hiding in plain sight. I love reading maps and looking at the symbolic meaning of elements in a map. Often elements that you don't see the first time. I don't see, and I spend weeks and months, and I've spent years doing research on a particular map or book or print. So decorative value is another dimension of value. And the third, which is for map collections and serious map collectors, is the historical cartographic value. And that is often what drives the price. Is this map produced by an engraver or a publisher, or is the survey by a surveyor who in his or her time was highly regarded or has become highly regarded? And that's a major driver of a market price. On the topic of market price, and I think it was certainly helpful to have an auctioneer give us a tutorial, the most important thing that I recommend to my clients is to realize price is not static. And there might be a market price posted in a dealer catalog or at a show, or even auction results, current auction results, or historic auction results will show you that prices go up and they go down and they go sideways. That at auctions, you might have 2 people fighting each other or in a delusional state who just want to win, and you'll get a fantastic price. And it might even be a week later, the same map in the same condition might bring a fraction of the price. So keep in mind that both value and price are not static. What kind of research can you do if you are hunting for a map? The hunt is really the fun part. There are auction records published. There used to be a magazine called Mercator's World, and I was given a set pre-computer, and I thought, oh, why should anybody save these? But the truth is, looking at advertisements is quite interesting, and you see prices there. But auction records, current auction records, and going back maybe 3 years, sometimes you'll see 5-year records, are worth tracking down. Many of the auction websites have an archive, and you can look prices up online in auction house and sometimes in dealer websites. Selling versus buying. What is my map worth? Well, there's an important choice to be made here between where do you stand? Are you asking the question as a buyer, or are you asking the question as a seller? The price is not unitary. The price that you might see on a map that's for sale, or you might be hoping to receive, is different than what a buyer might be thinking about in terms of what he or she would pay for a map. So what is my map worth? Well, are you the buyer or are you the seller? There's a heading in many professional conferences called Traps for the Unwary, and I thought, all right, it's kind of a catchy phrase. People sometimes ask me, I am buying a map because I think it's a good investment, an antique map. And I stop the person right there and say unequivocally, which is somewhat risky, an antique map and is rarely, if ever, an investment. I think that the most important thing to be honest about is why you're interested in purchasing this particular map. Does it fit a hole in your collection? Have you been looking for this series of Mitchell maps of the United States and you don't have the first edition? Are you interested in first surveys of the states of the United States and you don't have a first survey map of this particular state? So why are you interested in this map? Having it be the part of your collection that you're trying to develop is an excellent reason. Thinking of it as an investment, and again, the dollar bill with its depreciating value, notwithstanding its face value, I think is important to keep in mind. What is its value? Taste change. the value today might not be what the value was in the 1960s. Courier prints, which are not maps, but they're a good example of lithographs, were strongly collected. And I think the market certainly for courier prints has dramatically changed and softened, but it's not linear. It's more like a figure eight, and it will change yet again because tastes continue to change. Markets differ. Are you thinking of buying or selling a local market? Are you in a state market? Are you placing your hopes on a map that's listed online, which doesn't necessarily mean internationally, but that's a different marketplace. Choose your
Carol.
market carefully in which you buy and which you sell. Yes.
I want to make sure we have time for people to do some Q&A with you guys. Is that, are you at a decent stopping point?
I'm at a decent stopping point. And the last thing that I wanted to say about buying and pricing is make sure you get exactly what you're looking for. And I have made a few mistakes, and that is buying maps that are in frames and buying from photographs. And I caution people to do everything they can to visit shows or bookshops or map shops in person or dealers in person.
That's great. I
Those
want to
are my
thank,
concluding
thank you,
remarks.
Carol. I want to thank both you and Bruce for those introductions to both auction housing and buying and selling maps from a dealer, and wanted to open it up the floor to some Q&A. We had a couple of questions. I know Ron, Chris Jake, and Ken Habib, all three of them have questions already. I think Nick just posted one as well. So I'll turn it over to Ron Gibbs if he is available.
Well, thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Bruce. This year is the 40th anniversary since my wife Jane started us on our collection of maps. I don't think I've ever regretted buying any map because of the thrill of the search. Yet we do have questions. For example, if you are pursuing antique maps, rare maps of historic value, and the only state that the only one that you can find is only in fair condition, how does this value affect the retail price, the auction price, as compared to, say, one in good condition?
If I can answer that or try to, or basically a lot depends on just how rare the map is. I mean, if it's an extremely rare item, and the only copies known are in, fair or not very good condition, then you sort of have to take what you get in that sense. And it will, if it's rare enough, it will certainly hold its value. But if it's a map that, if you look hard enough and eventually a really nice one becomes available, that will certainly be would be a much better, investment if you're going to go that route, or better buy or something. So it just depends on how rare the map is, but condition is obviously very important. So,
Carol, any other thoughts about that?
Yes, I would certainly second everything that we've just heard. There's a wonderful phrase when you have a map and it's quite rare and the condition is not very good, that a seller will sometimes use, which is go find another one. And you stand back and you wonder, well, how long will that take? All maps that are printed have been printed in multiples. Some of the maps are more ephemeral, and so fewer examples have survived. But it's important to keep in mind there will be multiples, and even surveyors created multiple manuscript maps, one for the client, one for themselves, and one to file at the registry. So it's hard to use the word unique without qualifying it. If you find a map in fair condition, we'll just say we share the same understanding of what that means, and the map is in unrestored condition, and you haven't seen one, you've been collecting for 40 years, for 10 years or 15 years, that map ought to be priced to reflect its condition. And certainly if you wanted to wait for a better example, you should expect to pay more because condition is exceptionally important. But there's no harm in having an example of the map that you're looking for and negotiating with the seller and relying on the condition being an important factor in arriving at the price you're prepared to pay. A map that's in fair condition after professional restoration is, I think, a different animal. But if you find a map in fair condition that's untouched, it's certainly a reasonable map to buy. And yes, I would not pay or advise anyone to pay the same price unless this is a map of which there are 3 known copies, or 5 known copies. What does 3 known copies or 5 known copies means? It means in our great digital era that the institutions that have put their collections online and the dealers who have websites and have put their catalogs online and the auction research services that have digitized auction catalogs have only digitized 3 or 4 known copies. Probably in library collections and private collections there are others. But when you get into that very small pool of 10 known copies.
Yeah, that's pretty rarefied space.
That's rarefied
Yeah.
space, and
So-
condition might not be as important as the rarity.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that's great. Okay, we got several more questions I want to make sure we get a chance to get to. I don't know if it's Chris Jake or Jake Chris had a question saying, does anyone aggregate information on upcoming map auctions and make that info publicly available? Or is the consumer required to know the auction houses and to check their websites all the time or to get on a list so they hear that information as it goes?
I know that,
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
I was just going to mention Rare Book Hub lists upcoming auctions. There might be map auctions, and there's a lot of stuff in Europe going on that I don't, that I'm quite up to. Perhaps Carol will know, but I will turn that over to you, Carol, if you have.
Americana and American maps are my primary focus. So I am also not as familiar with European auctions and probably ought to be. And Rare Book Hub is what I rely on. It's a annual subscription service, which is very, very good. And if a person is a regular buyer and hunter, I would say it's been very helpful and I recommend it.
So even though it's called Rare Book Hub, it sounds like it also has information about auctions for maps, etc.
Yes.
Great. That's a great tip. Thank you. And then we had Ken Habib had a question. Ken, would you like to come up and?
Well, sure. I was just wondering, because Bruce mentioned Warren Eckroat, and I think he's passed, right? He's not around with us now, but I've just always been a little bit curious and just wonder, because you're talking about some maps being not as valuable, or rather bringing correction there, not bringing the prices that they brought, say, 10 or 15 years ago, although the San Francisco map seemed like an exception there. But did Warren Eckroat start his collecting so long enough ago when maps were not purchased as much, or
Warren began collecting back in the 1960s. He was a physicist, and he would have traveled back and forth to Geneva because he was on the strategic arms limitation. He was an expert for the strategic arm limitations talks. So, but then he would wander the streets of Geneva and buy all these he would come in and bring things, say, well, we just sold that for, $3,000. Oh, I bought it for, 10 francs, in 1968. So he bought very well, and he also was very intellectual in his buying, and that he didn't buy a book because it looked nice or a map because it looked nice. He bought it because it was an important map. So his maps held their value, and he made out very well.
Can I just add a quick comment that about European auctions? They've found me I think I'm not sure how they do it, but I get email from probably 4 or 5, and one is added about once every 6 months. So if you sign on to, if you find one European auction, they will eventually find you.
That's a good point, Ken. Thanks so much. And as we transition to Nick, I just want to note that I put the links for the Rare Book Hub, PBA galleries that Bruce runs, and Original Antique Maps, which is Carol's company, in the chat, so you have quick access to all of their information. Nick.
Yeah, given the fact that digital maps are now so freely available online, how would you see this affecting the future of collections and of pricing of hard copies?
I was just thinking about that before, when we were watching the other people before us, and it's almost like you get to a certain point, and why would, I mean, they don't print maps anymore, and if they do, they're so cheaply printed. So I would say that there's going to be a cutoff on collectible paper maps, and I don't know that the future holds well for producing new collectibles. There is ephemeral material that people will collect, just stuff that's printed in small numbers. Like, I guess we didn't get to see the little sketch map of Imperial Valley that we sold for $2,000. That was from the 1930s, but it was a one-offer, and there's not going to be very many more. So I would say the future of collectibles is in ephemera, not in the printed maps, as it were.
That's great.
Well,
Thank you.
collectors are getting out of business because you can look them up. I mean, what do you think?
No, I mean, collectors are, older material from the 20th century up until the start of the digital age, say 2000 or something, where everything is digitized and everything is online. And the new maps, I mean, I'm not gonna purchase a map because I have a map here on my phone. You have to figure out why do they make maps so people can know what the world is like, but you can see it on your computer now at any time. So I think it will have an effect.
Fabulous.
I'd
Thank
like
you
to
so
jump
much.
in on that question as well, because it's something which is, of course, a factor. Many shops now sell maps that are copies, or maps that have been photographed are available for sale, and sometimes you can purchase a photograph, a high-resolution photograph, instead of the map. I have in the past, and will continue to go to college campuses, and I set up a few tables and I bring maps, and the response has been fantastically enthusiastic. I like to bring all different kinds of maps, and I actually learn more from the people who come to my table and look through the bins of maps. And I would therefore say that the understanding of what a map is will change. And so, yes, the availability of digital products will mean that mass market will not be the same. But it does, I now, because of these experiences, have confidence that people in their 20s who have very little in their everyday work life and research life that's tangible will actually place a different value on an authentic antique map because it has a reality to it. It is what it is supposed to be. So I think that perhaps the emphasis on why a person will buy a map may change, but the perspective that people now in their 20s and 30s who've grown up with almost everything being digital will bring to the appreciation of maps will be something which we'll learn about by hearing their reaction. So I think that chapter is yet to be fully realized.
I agree. It's just that those are maps that were produced during the era of print, and now the going forward, future productions, it's hard to know that really think that future printed maps are going to have the same value as the past printed maps.
Oh, I agree with you, Bruce, 100%, there'll be fewer and fewer maps printed for contemporary use. Maybe land use planning will be an exception to that. And
Yeah,
I'm
that
trying to
sounds
think of other
great.
categories.
Thank you. Okay, well, so here's the deal. We have a lot more questions that are eagerly awaiting to speak with Carol and Bruce, but I want to do two things. I want to honor the fact that we are at 12:34 and the conference is supposed to end at 12:30. What I'd like to do is officially close the conference, but leave our window open. And anyone who wants to continue speaking to Bruce and Carol, we will continue to facilitate that discussion.
Great.
And welcome their questions. I still have my list, so if you're interested, please stay on. But I just want to say thank you to all of our presenters today. It's been wonderful to hear all these diverse views and information about these great topics and their time and effort to be a part of today's conference for fall of 2022. I'm going to toss it over to our president of the California Map Society, Ron Gibbs, for a few closing comments, and then we will circle back and restart the panel.
Well, so that we can get right back to the panel, the only thing I want to add is thank you to Courtney for setting up an exceptional program, and a round of applause there. And we will wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll look forward to the spring meeting that we'll have coming up here in Northern California. Thank you all. Thank you to all of our presenters. It was a spectacular meeting. Thank you.
Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. You guys are amazing. So those who need to leave, please feel free to sign off. I'm going to repin Bruce and Carol, and we will continue with our order of questions that we had coming up. Oops, sorry, hold on. I clicked the wrong thing. There we go. And so my next question that I had was from Fred Dargelet. Let me ask him to unmute and bring him to the screen. Fred, take it away.
Hi, Bruce.
Hi.
I was especially intrigued by the Salt Marsh map, San Francisco. And I have a rather important event here. It's someone very special to me who has an 80th birthday. So I haven't been able to view much of this program, but I was really interested in that particular salt marsh map. I used several of those in my time working for an engineering firm in San Francisco. And one item that aspect that I didn't catch was how much it sold for.
I have $10,000.
Oh my gosh.
And
I'm going to get mine out of storage.
Yeah. Well, I will caution you. I mean, let me just get to where the so we'd estimated at 2,000 to 3,000. We've sold other ones in the past. You know, there was like, this is map number 6. There was number 3, number 7, number 12. I think, you know, they had a series of them. And they usually go for a couple of $1,000s, maybe between 1,000 and 2,000. This, I think the premium was partly because of the lithographer, G.T. Brown, is really very noted. And it's just a very attractive, you know, beautiful map. So that was a high price. So don't expect necessarily to get that again. So, well,
that map was one of the key factors in us being able to reconfigure the state trust. It had some just wonderful information that we used, and it's another example of using historic maps for modern purposes.
Yeah, no, there's all sorts of, especially water maps and things that come through, you know, I guess they're in regular circulation, but they're becoming very much more, as I mentioned, much more collectible than, you know, your traditional, you know, antique maps, whatever. They tell a story of our development.
Thanks, Bruce.
Okay.
Thanks for your question, Fred, and happy birthday to your household. Tom had a question, and then I think Nick had his hand up. Oh, I'm going to ask. Thanks.
I'm curious about what percentage of your customers are members of map societies?
I honestly can't, I don't have that information. So I will not speculate because I think, probably people would, naturally gravitate towards map societies, but we don't have the data. So.
Carol?
I don't know the answer to that. I find that at shows such as the Ephemera Society of America show, most of the people who attend the show are members. And the Boston ABA show, which is coming up next week, it will be my first with that organization, will probably be well attended by MAP Society members. I don't know what percentage of the audience that will be. Most of the people who contact me are not. They're avid map collectors, they're rabid map collectors, and they tend to be a very independent breed of individual. So that's been my experience over the past, I'd say 10 years. And map society members seem to be on the coasts, the people I have met. So I'm curious about that question as well.
That's a great one. That's a great one. I thought I had seen a couple of hands up as we were closing out the meeting, but the hands have come down. Why don't I just put us in, let's see, we can unpin, go to gallery view. And anyone who has a question or has a comment or something they wanted to add, I think Ken was saying he's a regular at PBA. Is that true?
I can speak for Ken. Yes, he's been a customer of ours for many years. So.
Yeah. Hey, Ken, are you still on?
He's there, just not.
Ask you to unmute.
There we go. There I am. I just had to took away.
Hey, Ken,
Sorry.
since you're a regular, do you want to share any insights or perspective for us?
Let's see. There's some interesting things that come down the pike at PBA auctions. What's great about PBA is that they introduce maps that you haven't thought of. And for example, just recently, what was it? I think that the last auction, I bought a map of the city of Butte, Montana. And it was just really, and I just read about that map actually. And I'd never seen it before. And there it was at PBA auctions. That's like the very next day after I read about it. And so I bought it, and it wasn't all that much either. So I was pretty happy about that. And that story has kind of repeated itself through the years. So yeah, PBA is fun. I once, they start, Bruce will tell you, back me up on this. I once asked him, I said, well, why do you start your auctions at your auction lots at $100 so often? What if they're, the value is less than that? And he just says, he gave me a great answer. It's basically sort of keeps away I forget how you put it, Bruce, but kept out the rabble or whatever. But it was a good answer, and generally you get your money's worth at that auction.
Yeah, and I have to interject. And I mean, basically, like any business, we have to make sure our activities of serving our customers result in enough profit for us to stay in business. So if we sell things for too little, it takes just as much work to sell a map for $50 as $100. And now we have a minimum of $150 with inflation. So it's a business. As map making over the centuries has been a business. It's one of the ways to sort of understand what makes maps work is you got to realize, oh, the map maker was trying to make a profit. So anyway, but it's the $30, I guess.
Fabulous. And I think Douglas, are you able to unmute? I'm going to ask you to unmute. You see it on the screen? There you go.
Right. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. I'm looking for a map. It can be a printed map made, say, in the last century. or a digital map, GIS format or whatever, showing the different ethnic communities that occupy Ukraine, which are, and how they are being affected by the Russian occupation invasion. For example, my wife is a Greek American, has been studying the Greek community of Mariupol, originally Mariupolis. But we don't get information about how the occupation has affected them, whether they're still there, or they've been transported away from there, or what. But you don't see this kind of map in the media. They talk about changing boundaries between Russian and Ukrainian forces, but they don't relate that to the different communities that are being affected. And anyone have any ideas where there could be a source for such a map?
I do have a Ukrainian atlas, which I saw 2 years ago, and I just thought, this is interesting. It's Eastern Europe, and it's interesting. So if you send me an email, it's part of right now what I call my personal collection, but I will give you the author and publisher information.
Okay.
I was happy to have it, and I've been looking at it, and it was a very helpful book to consult to evaluate Putin's claim that Ukraine, which of course it had not been, always been part of Russia. So it has maps that go back centuries, and it has some more recent maps, and it might take you to your next goal of finding current maps. And I would say university collections in Europe might be able to give you references to the Ukrainian government published maps. That might be a good place.
Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you.
I'd like to interject. Fred, my friend Fred Ara, and myself went to Berkeley last week and saw a excellent exhibition of Ukrainian maps. And
Where?
the key person involved was Heiko Muir, a Map Society member. And it
He
had
was on earlier.
yes.
Well, that's good because I live near Berkeley. I'm in the South Bay, but
They have a
drive,
terrific, what I thought was a terrific selection,
Okay.
as well as some early atlases.
Good.
So I would encourage you to contact Heiko, and I can put his email address into the chat.
Thank you. Thank you.
That would be great. Thank you so much, Fred.
Sure.
And Carol and Douglas, I'm going to send you guys an introductory email so you both have each other's right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good.
I feel like someone else put something in the chat.
Well, I just put something in, Courtney, about paper maps because I don't think they're dead. So I went to the NACIS conference, North American Cartographic Information Society, and it's about 1,000 map makers working for organizations like National Geographic, and they're also map librarians. They publish a book every year of maps that are being made by their members, and it's super cool. And there's a lot of people making maps with Adobe products and Esri products, and they make these maps and typically sell prints of them. So Bruce and Carol, I'm guessing they don't sell through antique map dealers, but they're out there.
Okay, not yet. They'll be antiques, I guess. So I appreciate that. That'll keep us
version 6, and so most I find that and maps made today often get sold in book format. Ben Grant, who came and talked to us and has this wonderful website called Overview, has published 3 different books of his satellite images, which are like maps.
Right. Very good. Thanks, Tom.
And someone else, they don't have a name, it's just an iPad. I don't think they're still on. They said you could go to the International Map Collector Society, informally known as IMCOS. And I will copy that email address for you guys now in the chat in case anyone's interested in that international resource about
It's
auction.
wonderful. It's actually that's a very good suggestion. It's wonderful.
And I also want to interject as far as researching maps and map values. If you're not familiar with oldmaps.com, that's an excellent site. $100 a year for subscription. It compiles retail and auction prices of maps going back decades. So
Fabulous. Fabulous. So any more questions for our valiant panelists who've agreed to stay on so much extra time with us? This is a chance to pick their brain or get anything else you might want to know or share.
Thanks
We're
for all
good.
those links. Much appreciated.
Yeah, fabulous, fabulous. And
Thank you. Thank you much.
oh, good. And I just want to say thank you, Bruce. Thank you for being so incredibly flexible on the fly. I'm so sorry. I'm somehow I've got your things order of maps wrong, and I felt just terrible. But I appreciate you being flexible and
it
allowing me
worked
to
out.
support you
It worked out,
in our sort of adjunct sort of way today. Thank you guys so very, very much. Ron and Tom will stay on for just a moment. You guys were phenomenal. We love you guys and look forward to seeing you at our next California Map Society event. Thank you so much. Great
Thank
today.
you.
Good weekend, all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Leave me.
Some of these are. Stop
Well,
recording.
Well, there was
Okay,
still
hold on.
worry about
You stopped-
questions there.
Did you stop it?
No, you have to stop it, Tom.
Okay, I'm going to stop it. Hold on.